All right, so we're tackling a pretty interesting one today.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hardware, plumbing, and heating equipment, and supplies distribution manager interviews.
Quite a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. But, think about it. This is the person who's making sure all the essential stuff gets where it needs to go for like every building project out there.
Absolutely. It's a vital role, and it's honestly become even more complex over the years.
Right. And thankfully, we've got some great resources from RoleCatcher to help us break it down.
They've got these really detailed career and interview guides.
And the AI tool that's like a secret weapon for tailoring your answers, we'll definitely get into that later.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so first things first, let's look at this question. Can you describe your experience working in hardware, plumbing, and heating equipment distribution?
Okay, so that seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, like just tell them what you've done.
But it's actually a bit more nuanced than that.
What do you mean?
They're not just looking for a list of jobs.
Yeah.
They want to see if you really understand the industry.
So like, have you actually dealt with these specific products and these processes?
Exactly. Have you grasped the ins and outs of how things work in this specific field?
Okay, so don't just rattle off job titles.
No. Quantify your accomplishments. Give concrete examples.
So instead of saying, I managed inventory.
You'd say something like, I reduced stockouts by 15% by implementing a new tracking system.
Oh, I see. So you're showing the impact you made.
Precisely. Make it measurable.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
What kind of follow-up questions should people be ready for on this one?
Well, they might ask you to dig deeper into that example, like what kind of tracking system did you use?
Makes sense.
Or what were the challenges you faced?
Oh, yeah.
They could also ask about your experience with high-demand products, like a time you anticipated a shortage and took proactive steps.
And that's where RoleCatcher's AI can be so helpful, right?
Absolutely. It analyzes the job description and highlights those keywords you should be weaving into your answers.
You're making sure your answers are super relevant and targeted?
Exactly.
Okay, next question. This one seems to be the heart of the job. How do you handle inventory management and distribution logistics?
This is a big one.
Yeah, like it's not enough to just know the steps.
Right. They're looking for that strategic thinking.
How do you see the big picture? How do you optimize the whole flow?
And what's your approach to things like minimizing waste or ensuring on-time deliveries?
So beyond mentioning inventory systems and logistics software.
Talk about your process. Maybe you implemented a system that cut shipping costs by 10% or streamlined warehouse operations.
Give them concrete examples of your impact.
Always.
Now, I'm willing to bet they'll ask about unexpected disruptions, too.
Oh, for sure. Supply chain issues are a fact of life these days.
So be ready to explain how you've handled them in the past.
Did you find alternative suppliers or renegotiate contracts, reroute shipments? They want to see that you can think on your feet.
Okay, question 3 is all about relationships. How do you manage relationships with clients and vendors?
This one delves a bit more into your personality and communication style.
It does feel a bit more touchy-feely.
It's still very much about strategy.
How so?
Well, can you build rapport? Can you negotiate fairly? Can you resolve conflicts while maintaining those crucial relationships?
So what are some key things to hit when answering this one?
Highlight your communication skills. Maybe you have a system for regular check-ins with clients and vendors, not just when there's a problem.
Oh, that's a good one.
Show them you're proactive, you build trust.
And for follow-ups, they might ask about a specific conflict you had to navigate.
Definitely. Be prepared to walk them through a situation where you had to mediate, find a compromise, and ultimately preserve that working relationship.
This is great stuff.
Okay.
All right, question 4 gets a little bit more into the numbers. What is your experience with budgeting and financial analysis?
Yes, the financial side of things.
Not everyone's favorite topic,
True, but it's crucial for a management role.
even if you don't have a finance background.
Exactly. You need to showcase your ability to work with budgets, analyze data, make cost-effective decisions.
So what kind of experience should people highlight here?
Maybe you identified a cost-saving measure without sacrificing quality, or you implemented a new budgeting process that improved efficiency. Show them you're fiscally responsible.
And they could get specific about software or techniques?
Oh, absolutely. Be ready to discuss your familiarity with budgeting tools or any relevant certifications you have. The more concrete your knowledge, the better.
All right, question 5 is interesting. How do you stay up to date with industry trends and changes? Why is this so important for them?
Because this industry is constantly evolving new technologies, new regulations, new sustainability concerns. You need to demonstrate that you're not just keeping up, but actively seeking out knowledge.
So how do you answer that convincingly?
Be specific. Do you attend industry conferences? Read certain publications? Mention them. Do you follow thought leaders online? Name them. Show them you have a genuine interest in staying ahead of the curve.
I like that. And they might also ask about a recent trend that's caught your eye.
Yes. Have an example ready. What's a challenge facing the industry, and how do you think it should be tackled? Show them you're not just passively consuming information, but actively thinking about it.
Now, before we move on to more questions, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about the career path. Someone might be listening thinking, okay, distribution manager sounds great, but how do I even get there?
That's a great point. Many people start as a distribution assistant. RoleCatcher's career guide has a whole section on this.
Oh, that's helpful.
You'd be assisting with inventory deliveries, customer inquiries, really learning the ropes from the ground up.
So you get that hands-on experience, which is so valuable.
Exactly. And from there, you could specialize logistics, supply chain management. There are different paths depending on your interests.
So continuing education is key here.
Absolutely. Workshops, online courses, industry certifications, all of that shows you're committed to growth. And RoleCatcher actually provides links to some great resources right in their guides.
That's fantastic. Okay, let's get back to those interview questions. Number 6 is a classic. Can you describe a time when you had to resolve a conflict with a client or vendor? What are they really looking for here?
They want to see your problem-solving skills in action, but specifically how you handle those interpersonal challenges. Did you stay calm? Did you listen? Did you find a solution that benefited both sides?
So how do you choose a good example for this one?
Pick a situation where the conflict was significant, your actions were clear, and the outcome was positive. Don't just describe the problem, walk them through your thought process and the steps you took to resolve it.
And I bet they'll ask about what you learned from that experience.
Oh, definitely reflect on the lessons and how you've applied them to subsequent situations. This shows them you're not just reacting, you're constantly improving your approach.
Okay, question 7 is all about leadership. Can you describe your experience with managing a team? What if someone hasn't held a formal management title yet?
That's okay. Think about times you led a project, mentored a colleague, or took initiative to organize a group effort. Leadership comes in many forms.
That's a good point. So what are some key things to emphasize in your answer, even if you haven't had that formal title?
Focus on your communication style, your ability to delegate effectively, and how you motivate others. Did you set clear goals? Did you provide support and guidance? Did you celebrate successes as a team? Those are the kinds of details they want to hear.
And for follow-ups, they might ask about your leadership style.
Exactly. Be prepared to describe your approach to decision-making, conflict resolution, and how you give feedback. This helps them understand if your style aligns with their company culture.
All right, question number 8 is a practical one. How do you prioritize tasks and manage your time effectively? This feels essential for any manager, but especially in a field like this where things are constantly moving.
Absolutely. They need to know you can juggle multiple priorities, meet deadlines, and stay organized.
So how do you demonstrate those skills in a concrete way?
Don't just say you're organized. Show them your system. Do you use a specific to-do list method? A project management software? Time blocking techniques? Be specific and give them a glimpse into your workflow.
Now, I bet they'll ask about unexpected interruptions. Those always happen.
For sure. How do you adapt your schedule when a crisis arises? Do you delegate effectively? Do you communicate clearly with your team about shifting priorities? Those are the kinds of scenarios they want to hear about.
Okay, let's move on to question number 9, which is all about safety. How do you ensure compliance with safety regulations and industry standards? This feels like a big one for this industry.
Absolutely. They need to know that you're committed to maintaining a safe work environment for yourself and your team, and that you understand the specific regulations relevant to hardware, plumbing, and heating equipment.
So how do you showcase your knowledge in this area convincingly?
Highlight any specific safety training or certifications you have. Explain how you communicate and enforce those standards with your team. Do you conduct regular safety meetings? Do you have a system for reporting and addressing hazards? Be specific about your approach.
And they might also ask about a specific safety challenge you faced.
Yes. Be ready to share an example of how you identified a potential hazard, implemented corrective actions, and ultimately prevented an accident. This shows them you can think proactively and take safety seriously.
All right, let's tackle the final question in this set. Can you describe your experience with vendor selection and management? This feels very strategic.
It is. They're assessing your ability to find the best suppliers, negotiate favorable terms, and build those long-term relationships that benefit the company.
So what are some key points to hit in your answer?
Describe your process for evaluating potential vendors. Do you consider factors like quality, reliability, cost, delivery times, and even their environmental practices? Give them a glimpse into your decision-making framework.
And for follow-ups, they might ask about specific criteria you use.
Right. Be prepared to discuss how you weigh different factors and make those tough decisions. They might also ask about your approach to negotiating contracts and handling vendor performance issues.
This has been incredibly helpful. We've covered 10 key interview questions and really dug into how to approach them strategically.
And remember, these are just a starting point. RoleCatcher provides a whole library of potential questions tailored to different industries and job roles.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. RoleCatcher's AI tools. These can be a game changer for interview prep, right?
Absolutely. Their AI analyzes the job description and suggests specific keywords and phrases to incorporate into your answers.
So it's not just generic advice, it's tailored to the specific job you're applying for. That's pretty amazing.
It is, and their AI feedback doesn't stop there. We'll talk more about their interview practice feature in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. We'll be back after a short break to delve deeper into how RoleCatcher's AI can help you refine your answers and deliver a standout interview performance.
Sounds good. We just went through like a ton of potential interview questions.
That's no right.
And it's clear this role is not messing around, like they really want someone who can handle a lot.
Yeah, it's a demanding position for sure.
But imagine if you had this like tool that could help you really nail those answers, like make sure you're hitting all the key points the interviewer is looking for.
You're talking about RoleCatcher's AI, right?
Exactly. It's like a secret weapon for interview prep.
We touched on it earlier, but let's dive a little deeper. How does this AI actually work for interview prep?
Okay, so think of it as like a personal coach, but one that's powered by algorithms and tons of data. You take your rough answers, like to that conflict resolution question we talked about,
Right.
and you feed them into RoleCatcher's system.
So it's like analyzing what I've said,
Yeah.
but also taking into account the specific job I'm going for.
Exactly. It's looking at both your response and the job description, making sure everything aligns.
Okay, that's smart, but
Yeah.
honestly, I'm a terrible self-critic. Like, what kind of feedback does it actually give?
Oh, it's super specific. It might suggest adding more detail about the systems you used or quantifying your impact with numbers.
Oh, interesting.
It could even point out if your tone is too casual or too formal, based on the company culture.
So it's like helping me bridge that gap between what I think I'm saying and what they're actually hearing.
Exactly. And sometimes just a small tweak in wording or emphasis can make a huge difference in how you come across.
That's true. What about delivery, though? I get so nervous in interviews, I fidget, I talk too fast.
RoleCatcher has a feature for that too.
Really?
Yep, you can actually record yourself answering questions.
Oh, wow.
And the AI analyzes not just the words, but your pacing, your tone of voice, even your body language.
Whoa, it's like a virtual mock interview with brutal honesty from a robot.
Yeah, it is, but it's constructive honesty. Maybe it flags that you're looking away too much or speaking too fast, and then it gives you tips on how to improve.
Okay, that's actually game-changing, especially if you don't have access to like a human coach or mock interviews.
Exactly. It really democratizes that preparation process, making it accessible to anyone.
Now, before we get too deep into the AI side, I want to bring it back to the industry itself.
Yeah.
We were talking about the career paths earlier, starting as a distribution assistant. But what are some of the paths you can specialize in as you gain experience?
There are definitely a few routes you could take. Some people really gravitate towards logistics, becoming experts in like optimizing routes, managing fleets, and making sure deliveries happen on time.
So that's really getting things where they need to be side of things.
Precisely. Others might be more drawn to supply chain management, focusing on sourcing vendor relationships, negotiating contracts, all that behind-the-scenes strategic stuff. And increasingly, there's a growing demand for managers who understand sustainability. Sourcing eco-friendly products, minimizing waste, optimizing transportation to reduce the company's carbon footprint.
That's a great point. It sounds like this role is becoming less about just moving stuff around and more about understanding the impact of those movements on the world.
Exactly. Consumers are way more aware now than ever before, and they're demanding sustainability from the companies they support. So a savvy distribution manager needs to be ahead of the curve on that.
Okay, let's jump back into those interview questions, armed with this new understanding of the field's complexity. Question number 11 asks, what steps do you take to ensure accuracy in order fulfillment?
Okay, so this one is all about minimizing errors, those mistakes that can be costly and really damage relationships. They want to hear about your meticulousness, your systems, and your commitment to getting it right every time.
So beyond just saying, I'm careful, what kind of concrete examples can you give?
Talk about specific checks and balances you've put in place. Maybe you implemented a barcode scanning system or a double checking protocol before anything leaves the warehouse.
Oh, that's good.
You want to demonstrate that you have a system.
And what if they ask for an example of a time you did have an error?
Own it. Explain what happened, how you resolved it, and what you learned to prevent it from happening again. Honesty and a commitment to continuous improvement are key here.
Great point. Question 12 focuses on problem solving. Can you describe a time you had to make a difficult decision under pressure? This feels applicable to so many jobs, but how does it apply specifically to this role?
Well, think about the kinds of pressure situations a distribution manager faces. Maybe a shipment is delayed, a key piece of equipment breaks down, or a major client has a really urgent request.
So they're looking for someone who can think clearly when things go wrong when the pressure's on.
Exactly. Choose an example that demonstrates your ability to assess the situation, quickly weigh your options, and make a decision that minimizes disruption and keeps things moving.
And for follow-ups, they might ask about the consequences of your decision, right? Like what happened as a result.
Absolutely. Be prepared to discuss both the positive and negative outcomes. Did you have to make trade-offs? Were there any unforeseen consequences? This shows them you understand that decision-making isn't always black and white.
Okay, question 13 is about motivation. How do you motivate your team to achieve goals? Now, this feels like Leadership 101, but what are they looking for specifically in a distribution manager?
They want to see that you understand the unique challenges of this industry. It's fast-paced, it's demanding, and it often involves long hours and physically demanding work.
So it's not just about pep talks and bonuses.
Right. It's about recognizing those challenges and finding ways to keep your team engaged and productive. Maybe you found success with clear communication recognition programs or creating a sense of ownership and responsibility within the team.
And if they ask about a time you struggled to motivate someone,
Be honest. Explain the situation, what you tried, and what you learned from it. Maybe you realized you needed to adjust your communication style or delegate differently. Showing that you're self-aware and willing to adapt is key.
okay, question 14 is about delegation. Can you describe your approach to delegating tasks? Why is this skill so crucial in this particular role?
Because a distribution manager can't do everything themselves. They need to trust their team, assign responsibilities effectively, and empower others to take ownership.
Right, it's all about teamwork.
Exactly. So when answering this question, talk about your process for assessing your team's strengths and weaknesses. How do you match tasks to individual skills? How do you ensure clear communication and set expectations?
Makes sense. And what about follow-ups? They might ask about a time delegation went wrong.
Definitely be ready to share an example where maybe you delegated too much or not enough, or perhaps you didn't communicate clearly, leading to confusion or mistakes. What's important is to show what you learned and how you improved your approach.
Okay, question 15 is a bit broader. What are your greatest strengths as a manager? This feels like a chance to really sell yourself. But how do you do it without sounding arrogant?
It's a balance for sure. Focus on strengths that are directly relevant to the role and back them up with concrete examples. Maybe you're a strong communicator, a problem solver, or a master of organization.
And I bet those keywords from the job description come in handy here.
Absolutely. Weave those in to show them you've read the description carefully and understand what they're looking for. But don't just parrot them back, provide evidence from your experience.
Okay, question 16 flips the script. What are your weaknesses as a manager? This one's always tricky.
It is, but honesty is key. Don't try to disguise a strength as a weakness. Choose something you genuinely struggle with, but frame it in a way that shows you're self-aware and actively working on it.
So, for example,
Maybe you tend to be a perfectionist, which can sometimes lead to micromanaging. Or perhaps you're not always comfortable delegating. The key is to show that you recognize the potential downsides and are taking steps to improve.
and if they ask for specific examples of how this weakness has impacted your work.
Be prepared to share a situation where your weakness caused a challenge. What did you learn from it? What steps have you taken to mitigate it? This shows them you're committed to personal growth.
All right, question 17 is about your long-term goals. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? How does this apply to a distribution manager role?
They want to see if you're ambitious, if you're looking to grow within the company, and if your aspirations align with their opportunities.
So is it a good idea to express interest in moving up the ladder?
It can be, but be specific about your career aspirations within the distribution field. Maybe you're interested in leading larger teams, managing more complex projects, or specializing in a particular area like supply chain optimization or sustainability.
And if they ask about specific steps you're taking to achieve those goals.
Talk about your professional development plans. Are you pursuing certifications? Attending industry conferences? Reading books and articles? Show them you're proactive about your career growth.
Okay, question 18 is about your salary expectations. What are your salary requirements? This one always feels a bit awkward.
It can be, but it's an important conversation. Do your research beforehand. Use websites like Glassdoor or salary.com to get a sense of the average salary range for this role in your geographic area.
And should you give them a specific number or a range?
It's usually best to provide a range rather than a firm number. This gives you some flexibility in negotiations.
And if they ask you to justify your salary expectations?
Be prepared to highlight your relevant experience, skills, and accomplishments. What makes you a valuable asset to their company? Focus on the value you bring rather than just the money.
Okay, question 19 is about your availability. When are you available to start? Seems straightforward, but what are they really assessing here?
They're gauging your level of commitment and how seriously you're considering this opportunity. If you're currently employed, be honest about your notice period.
And if you're not employed?
It's usually best to express a willingness to start as soon as possible. This shows them you're eager to get to work.
All right, final question in this set. Do you have any questions for us? This is your chance to turn the tables right.
Absolutely. Never say no to this. It shows that you're curious, engaged, and serious about the opportunity.
So what kind of questions should you ask?
Prepare a few questions beforehand that demonstrate your interest in the company, the role in the team. Maybe ask about the company culture, the biggest challenges facing the team, or the opportunities for professional development.
Okay, we've tackled 20 interview questions so far. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. But before we move on, I want to circle back to something that can really elevate your preparation, RoleCatcher's AI.
Right. We've talked about how it can help you tailor your answers to the specific job description, but it goes beyond that. Their AI-powered energy practice feature takes your preparation to a whole new level.
Okay, that sounds intriguing. Let's dive into that after a short break. We'll be back to explore how RoleCatcher's AI can help you deliver a standout interview performance.
Okay, so we've prepped for like a million interview questions.
That does feel like a lot.
Our brains are probably fried. But hey, that's the reality of prepping for a management role like this.
Right, it's not for the faint of heart.
You need a mix of like technical skills, people skills, and that strategic big picture thinking.
And let's be real, we've only scratched the surface here.
Oh yeah, RoleCatcher has a ton more in their guide, specific questions for different industries and job levels.
But even with all the knowledge in the world, nerves can still get the best of us in that actual interview room.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where I think RoleCatcher's AI can really make a difference.
It can be a game changer.
We keep mentioning this AI, but I need you to break it down for me. What does AI-powered interview practice even look like?
Okay, so picture this. You're doing a mock interview, but your coach is a robot.
Okay, a robot coach. Interesting.
Yeah, so you pick a question from their database, maybe one we talked about today, and you record yourself answering it just like you would in a real interview.
All right, I could see how that would be helpful, just getting used to saying the words out loud. But what's the AI doing? Is it judging me silently?
Kinda, but in a good way, It's analyzing your video on multiple levels.
Like what?
First, it checks your content. Are you hitting the key points using relevant examples, incorporating those keywords we talked about?
So it's like an expert scan, making sure I'm actually answering what they ask.
Exactly. But then it gets even cooler.
How?
It also looks at your delivery, your pacing, your tone of voice, your body language.
Wait, hold on. It can tell if I'm fidgeting or avoiding eye contact?
Oh yeah, it picks up on those subtle cues that we might not even be aware of ourselves.
That's wild.
And then it gives you specific feedback like slow down your speech or maintain more eye contact.
Okay, that's amazing. It's like having a secret weapon to help you polish your performance.
Precisely. And you can practice as many times as you need to. Record, review, refine, repeat until you feel super confident.
Now, all this talk about AI and tech, someone listening might be thinking, is the human element becoming less important in this role?
That's a really good question. And honestly, as technology evolves, I think the role of the distribution manager is definitely changing. But I still believe that those human skills, communication, leadership, problem solving are becoming even more important.
Because you need someone who can bridge that gap between the tech and the people.
Exactly. Someone who can interpret the data, understand the nuances of the industry, and lead a team through all those inevitable challenges.
So it's not just about knowing the software, it's about having that strategic vision and the ability to adapt.
Right. Think of it this way. The technology can handle the routine tasks, but it takes a human to handle the unexpected, to make those tough decisions, and to really motivate a team.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So if
Right.
you're listening to this and you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this information,
That's a lot.
just remember, you're not alone. You have resources to help you prepare.
Absolutely.
RoleCatcher provides the knowledge, the tools, even the AI-powered coaching to help you succeed in this interview and honestly in this career.
It's all there for you.
So go out there, do your research, practice those answers, and embrace the challenge.
Don't be afraid to jump in.
The future of distribution is exciting, and it needs skilled, adaptable leaders like you. And remember, even the most successful managers, they started somewhere.
They were once in your shoes prepping for that first interview.
So take a deep breath, trust the process, never stop learning. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive.